I got my first pair of hearing aids about 5 years ago. I've had hereditary hearing loss my whole life, shared by my mom and brother, who've worn hearing aids for decades, but I put it off until 2020 when everyone put on masks and I lost my ability to read lips. That sent me on a whole journey which started as a search for the best hearing aids for me and eventually became Soundly.com, which is now one of the leading resources for shopping and research around hearing aids in the United States. In this video, I'm going to go back in time and talk about the 5 things I wish I had known in 2020 when I was just getting started with my hearing aid research. Some things about technology, about care methods, about price. I'll talk through all of that in this video. If we haven't yet met, my name is Blake Cadwell. I'm the co-founder at Soundly.com. And if you like what you see in this video, I'd appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Helps us reach more people. So with that, let's get into it. So leading up to 2020, my wife and lots of other people in my life had encouraged me to go get my hearing tested and ultimately get hearing aids. It was difficult for me to hear in background noise. It was difficult for me to hear when folks were behind me or I wasn't able to see their face. But I just wasn't totally ready until I got pretty much forced over the line by COVID and mask wearing all around me. My experience at that time was that I was crossing the street to get away from neighbors because they were wearing a mask. I knew they would say something to me and I would have absolutely no idea what it was. The awkwardness of that exchange just wasn't worth it. So I was basically retracting from my life. And ultimately I realized this didn't make sense and wasn't sustainable. So I sat down in front of my laptop. I probably Googled something like best hearing aids or modern hearing aids. And I started on this wild journey of trying to figure out which way was up in the hearing health landscape. So if I could go back in time and architect that research experience, the first thing that I would start with is a clear understanding of what my individual hearing loss was. My mom and brother both wore hearing aids, and I knew I had hereditary hearing loss, but I had never actually gotten a hearing test, so I wasn't entirely sure what that looked like on a chart. And interestingly, at the time, there were no really good online hearing tests available, so I had to go into a local clinic to get that test, and that's a perfectly fine route, but it created friction in the process of research for me. So one of the first things that we built after we launched Soundly.com is an interactive hearing test that you can take in 5 minutes. It's not as robust as what you find in a local clinic, but it will give you a clear sense for your individual hearing loss and the shape of your hearing loss. In my case, I have a cookie bite, so I can see the line go down and then back up, and that tells me my level of severity and what I might need to do about it. And having that test in hand was a really important bit of information for me to understand my own hearing loss and also my treatment options. So that's really the first thing I wish I had back then, was an easy online test that I could take to quickly establish and understand my hearing loss. For anyone who has not yet taken a hearing test, I'll drop a link below. It's free, it takes about 5 minutes. You will need a pair of headphones. And then it's worth noting that if you want someone to review your test with you and talk about those results, maybe some of the care options that you have, our team is happy to do that over at Soundly.com. So the second thing that was really challenging for me to figure out as I was initially researching hearing aids is the topic of care models. And I'm sure you've seen this. There are hearing aids priced at $200 and then hearing aids that you know are going to cost maybe $6,000 or $7,000 at a local clinic. So why is there such a big disparity? How do you understand that? Now, it really happens on 2 planes. There's technology disparity, so low quality technology versus high quality technology. But maybe even more importantly, there's a difference in care model. And this is something that it took me too long to figure out. So one of the key drivers of price and overall experience is whether you choose to purchase over the counter or purchase in clinic. Now, when I was going through my research, it was before over the counter was even an official category, but there were already hearing aids that you could buy directly. Today, it's governed by the FDA and a little bit clearer than it was back at that time. But essentially, an over-the-counter device lets you program your hearing aids using a smartphone. So you'll get a box shipped to you. It's not programmed to your individual hearing loss. You use a smartphone app and you program those devices and you put them into your ears. Now, on a technology level, some of the leading OTC brands that we sell at Soundly.com, like Sony and Sennheiser, are made by the same groups that make prescription technology. So there's basic parity in the overall technology, but the care method is quite different. And as such, the price is quite different. Sony and Sennheiser hearing aids are about $1,000 for a pair, really quality technology, self-fit. It's worth noting you get a setup call with our audiologist at Soundly.com if you do purchase through us. And then you compare that to a prescription product that might be $4,000, $5,000 or $6,000 with ongoing care at a local clinic. Often the technology is somewhat similar, but the care is completely different. Again, that took me way too long to understand. And once I did, it started to make pricing and the overall options available make just a lot more sense. All right, the third thing that I would go back and explain to my 2020 self is on the topic of hearing aid form factor. So if you're just starting your research, there's a very good chance you've seen hearing aids shaped like this. This is called a receiver-in-canal hearing aid. This is the most common form factor. The brain of the operation sits behind your ear. There's a little wire that goes up over the ear and plays sound into your ear canal. But when I first started researching hearing aids, I wanted something invisible. So I wanted something that would sit deep inside my ear canal. So I found a product, it wasn't this product, but I found a product like Sony's invisible in-ear hearing aid. It sits deep inside the ear canal and it's basically invisible. This product really fits into the shadow of your ear canal and it's really fantastic. But at the start of my research, I was really focused on finding something in-ear. What it took me a while to realize is that the choice between an in-ear device and a receiver-in-canal device is not necessarily a choice about visibility. In my case, a receiver-in-canal hearing aid fits almost more invisibly in my ear because it's a smaller piece inside the ear canal, and this piece sort of hides behind my hair, than an in-ear device, which it's possible someone might see sitting in my ear canal because it's just a little bit larger. There are many other reasons that you might go for an in-ear device. Let's say you want to keep your hearing aids away from glasses or masks, or maybe you don't have hair and you don't like the idea of someone seeing that hearing aid behind your ear. In any case, it took me by surprise, as I've now tried 50 plus hearing aids, how invisible receiver-in-canal devices can be. Most people never know I'm wearing hearing aids when I wear a receiver-in-canal. And similarly, most people would never know I'm wearing a Sony CRE-C20 device or another invisible style device. In general, the decision about visibility really isn't always totally linked to form factor. I spend time personally wearing all of the products that are available at Soundly.com, but on a day-to-day basis, I do reach for a receiver-in-canal device, the one with the little wire, more often than other styles. I find it has slightly better sound quality and is a little bit more comfortable in my ear canal. So that journey from in-ear to receiver-in-canal took me a little while and is probably something that I could accelerate if I could go back and explain the differences to my 2020 self. Okay, lesson number 4, adjustment. One of the things that I did not realize as I was getting hearing aids is that adjusting to hearing aids takes a little while. When you first put in devices, the world sounds kind of loud. And that's because I had become accustomed, even from birth, I was totally accustomed to the volume that I was hearing things at. Now that volume was too quiet. I could not hear people speaking to me if they were not looking at me. It was causing me lots of setbacks in my life. But I was used to that lower volume. And so when I turned the volume up, there was a relative intensity that I felt. So the first time that I put on hearing aids, I stepped outside of my home and there was a helicopter flying up overhead, which is common where I live. And I ducked because I thought it was right on top of me. Of course, I looked up and it was in its regular position in the sky. But the adjustment period took me a couple of months to really settle into my hearing aids and feel comfortable wearing them for 8 or 12 hours a day. So what I would tell myself is to be patient with myself, to expect that it's a little bit hard and to work my way up, not to be afraid to turn down the volume or spend a little bit less time in them and try to add a little bit of time each day, knowing that eventually I would get used to hearing aids. One of the things we recently did at Soundly.com is we made our best-selling over-the-counter hearing aid, which is the Sennheiser All-Day Clear, available with a 100-day return policy. The reason for that is that we had a lot of folks who were really enjoying the product, but 30 days in, they were still adjusting to their hearing aids and they would call us and say, hey, can I keep them for a little bit longer before I fully decide if I'm going to keep these hearing aids forever? And the answer, of course, we want it to be yes. So we extended that to 100 days, which gives folks a longer period to adjust to their devices. We work really hard to make the adjustment process easier for those folks who do purchase with us. But regardless of where you purchase your first pair of hearing aids, it's worth noting that the adjustment period takes some patience. And eventually, you will become accustomed to your hearing aids. I now wear them for 12 or 14 hours a day, and I don't even think about it. Most hearing aid wearers are that way, but it takes some time to get there. The final thing that I would go back and tell myself is just how much more confident I would feel once I was adjusted to a pair of devices and felt comfortable wearing it all day. My experience now is so different from the time when I had hearing loss. I was constantly managing the fact that I might not be able to hear what someone would say. That would change my entire behavior. I might speak more loudly to someone so they might speak louder back to me, or try to get closer to them, or in many cases, avoid a conversation if I knew that the person was going to speak too softly. There were certain moments in my work life that were either really frustrating or I simply avoided because I knew I was going to miss so much context. Now with hearing aids, I have the confidence to approach every conversation, assume that I'm going to hear someone, and know that I'm taking care of this part of my life. So I'm not pulling back in these kind of micro ways from individual parts of my life that I want to feel fully engaged in. In 2021, a year after I got my first pair of hearing aids, I had a daughter, and she's now 4 years old and talks to me all the time. And of course, she talks just like any other little kid, soft talker, sometimes turns away from me. And I'm so grateful that I took the time to figure this part of my life out so that I'm able to really interact with her and hold conversation with her. Even when she's turned the other direction, she's speaking softly and we're in background noise. So if you're just getting started in your hearing health research, or you're re-entering the process for the first time in a long time, I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you have any questions or want more support and resources, head over to soundly.com. Our team is happy to talk with you, take a look at your test, talk to you about your options. You can also drop comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for your time and good luck with your research.